Hello, it's Tuesday, and I'm Emery. Welcome to the Working Title Project. I'm going to start a topic about compassion, because I made a response video to Dan's video about nonviolence, and I realized how little compassion I actually have in the grand scheme of, like, human beings. And Saturday's video was really great, talking about judgment as well, you know, and Danny and Michelle were talking about having compassion for all living things, you know, including plants even. And for me, that's simple. You know, I have compassion for suffering, you know. But when it comes to like to be honest, what sent me on this was I was talking about top surgery and my fundraiser, and it's sort of a touchy subject, you know. People want to know what I'm doing to work toward it, and my reaction is usually, well, of course I'm doing everything I can. Like, don't you understand? This is my life, my body, my happiness. That's what I'm working toward. You know, comfort. That's the whole point in my transition, is to be balanced and comfortable in my body and in my life. And I do that through meditation and exercise and diet and relationships with people. But I have a hard time having compassion for people that I'm jealous of, I think is what it really comes down to. You know, the bankers with their billions of dollars who are spending money doing things that I don't agree with, like funding campaigns for anti-abortion or Proposition 8, or, you know, just going on vacation and partying and doing all this stuff when they could be helping people, and not even me, you know. Of course, I am me, and I am the first thought in my head always, like, you know, why can't the people with all the money pay for surgeries that save lives? But they don't pay for even more drastic surgeries when it comes to cancer or getting a transplant of some sort. You know, that there are things that just don't make sense to me, and I have a hard time having compassion for those people. So I would like to ask the question, if anybody knows or wants to talk about the other side of compassion. Does that make sense? Like I said, I have compassion for those who are suffering, but when I'm suffering, I have a hard time having compassion for those who I don't feel they're suffering, and everybody is suffering to some extent, right? But I can't look at these. I mean, my example is the bankers, because I feel like the bankers really run the US, you know. I put what little money I have in a bank account, and they want to charge me $30 a month to keep what's in there, when those are the richest people in America. And it aggravates me, because I want to give that $30 a week or a month or whatever I can afford at that time to my top surgery. And then after that, I want to give back. And I just, you know, I don't think that I'll ever be able to comprehend why other people don't want to give back. But if I could just have compassion for them, then I think it would help with my patience and my anger, really. You know, and I try to investigate that through listening to people talk about compassion and you know, doing these meditations. But in these guided meditations, it's sort of just being with what is, you know. Like, I could just try to be zen and think like, okay, well, I'm here right now, and I'm taking things one day at a time, and I'm doing what I can to help others, and that benefits me because it makes me feel good, it makes me feel healthy. I feel good when I'm giving. And, you know, trying not to believe the story of everything else, of like, this person's doing this and I don't understand, and how can I understand, and all this stuff, and just be with what is, just be here now. But it's a recurring theme in my life, because I don't come from money. So when I see people with money, I just don't understand the conditioning behind, like, greed. So, does that give you anything to talk about? That's just what's on my mind today. Happy Tuesday. To end this section of this video on a positive note, I'm okay, right? That's basically what it comes down to, is I'm okay now, you know? It could be worse, and I can only do so much, and I am doing that. You know, I do sometimes feel the need to prove that, but really, I think it is a positive thing to want to have more compassion and to learn about the suffering of those who aren't so obviously suffering.
Good topic, and a very good example that Emery brings up when it comes to compassion is the financial aspect of being able to help others. Because everyone knows that aspect of it. Everyone understands that aspect of it, whether they do anything about it or not. Because you see the different, children suffering in other countries, natural disasters, and people needing help to rebuild and come back from the devastation that's happened. Financial compassion. We're in a world that money drives everything. So, being able to be compassionate and assist people with finances is a big part of that. And I agree completely with Emery on it, where it's like, I don't understand people that can't ever seem to give anything to help others, that complain. All they can do is look at what you're trying to do and complain. Oh, well, they beggars are all the time just wanting money and blah blah blah. It's just like, no, you helping others. I mean, isn't that kind of the point? I guess I don't quite understand how people can feel that way, just as much as Emery said he can't understand people feeling that way. But how do you take this further? Compassion, and I always think empathy. And I always want to look at it, well, yeah, you can be financially compassionate, but then there's doing something more than, it's, in my opinion, easy. Here's a few bucks, here you go, have fun. But as much as that is a big help depending on the situation, there's also physically doing something. It's that whole, kind of going back to another topic, it takes a community to build a barn type situation. Coming together to help others in need. That kind of compassion where, that only the people who go out and actually do something to help rebuild, donating more than just money, but their physical and personal energy to make the situation better. Those are the type of people, that type of compassion is kind of hard to come by, it seems sometimes, because it is easy to just turn a blind eye and, okay, open your pocketbook and give a few bucks and donate here and there. But truly feeling the being compassionate for someone and feeling empathy with their situation and sacrificing personal energy and time to get them to where they need to be, that I think says a lot more about someone than just money. I don't know, I guess I don't have a ton to really add to this. Compassion is, it's a simple enough concept to think about, but in practice, it's a lot more of a difficult thing to have than one would first think. I don't know. What do you think? What does compassion mean to you?
Hi, my name is Isabella, and today I will be adding my point of view to the topic of compassion. This was a very, very hard topic to consider, and I had to actually sit down and write on paper some notes to try to make sense of what I wanted to say. I hope that you can kind of follow my train of thought. Basically, the two core points that I want to touch in this video is self-compassion and compassion for others. Others in the sense of things exterior to my physical representation in this world. First, I would like to talk about the self-compassion, which I feel Emery touched upon a lot in his video, in the sense that he talked about things like meditation and being comfortable in myself and being balanced. Regardless of my situation, I need to be self-compassionate and care enough about myself. Compassion is so deeply tied to awareness, in the sense that, let's talk about self-compassion. You need to be self-aware and aware of your situation and your reality to be able to make changes that benefit yourself. I feel that self-compassion is basically caring about yourself and being comfortable. And here is where I see where humans are faced with a crossroad, in the sense that when you're compassionate and you feel comfortable, like you've reached the point where you say, okay, my life isn't perfect, because perfection does not exist, but I am sufficiently comfortable with myself to love myself and just be comfortable with who I am. And there is this crossroad between greed and altruism. Here is where kind of my two core points meet, in the sense that we need to step out of our self-compassion and our self-awareness and amplify that in a global awareness. I would say that in order for people to be compassionate, they first need to be able to step out of their own reality and be aware of other realities, and understanding that there is no definite and concrete reality, that reality is just perception, and this reality is shaped upon many different factors, just to mention some: cultural background, social background, economical background. Every little aspect of your life that is unique to you will shape a different reality. So I feel that if you want to be compassionate, you need to understand and respect this fact. There is another kind of crossroad that you need to face where, okay, will I do something with this awareness, with this knowledge that I have? Like Andie said, will I give my own personal effort and time in order to try to give back? Is where I feel like the cycle completes itself. Like, you need to be self-aware, then you need to step out of your own reality, be aware of other realities, have empathy, and want to give or do or spend time or spend money or just anything that involves you doing something for others. I feel that's where, when you are compassionate. Here I want to make a parenthesis that some people say like, oh, but I don't have the time, or I don't have the resources, or I don't have the abilities to make a change in the world. To those people I say, like, even a smile can make a person's day brighter. You can be compassionate by doing simple little daily things in your daily routine, like just notice how many people look at you in the street and smile sincerely. I feel that the world is so cold and so distant and so inhumane that even smiles are taken for granted. I feel that with all the interconnection that we have now globally, there is a sense of responsibility of us as humans to step out of our bubble and realize that people need each other. The human beings have always, always, always lived in community. We need each other. And I feel that's the major difference between being a greedy person and being compassionate, in the sense that you understand that we all need each other, and here is where you can maybe intertwine things other than humans, like humans also need nature, therefore we need to be compassionate with nature and with animals and all of this. I could ramble about this forever and ever and ever and give you a million examples, but the time here is limited, so I feel that just to try to wrap up everything, the main points I tried to convey in this video is that self-compassion is important, that compassion for others is important, that compassion does not exist without awareness, awareness of situations, awareness of differences, awareness of that we are one and that we need each other, and also that there is a definite step between being aware and actually concreting and doing something. Yeah, well, I think that was kind of my take in all of this. And so yeah, bye. See you at some point in the future.
Hey everyone, it's Fionn here. I had to get to a point where I could see that even when someone doesn't look like they're suffering, even when someone is convinced that they're not, they are. A person who is happy with their life and, to me, living in some sort of ignorance, is to try and find compassion for that. It's easier when someone puts their hands up and says, I've done something wrong here, I'm in a shitty place. The big thing that springs to my mind instantly is my dad, who wasn't around and has passed away now, so he's never coming back. And there's no possibility for me to have an interaction with him where I can try and understand him. And I think if I did have that, then compassion would come easier to me, but it's not possible. So for the last few years since he's died, I've tried to come to some sort of resolution as to how I can accept the way he treated me, because he was living in such ignorance to what he was doing wrong, and he could have done so much more, but he didn't see it. The part where you're supposed to say, I just need to let it be, it just is, and that's that. I don't think you can do that unless you can figure out a way to be compassionate first. So I've just felt like I have to understand it. And I'm never going to understand it completely, but I have to get some sort of grasp on it. And my mum always said to me that when he was living, he was always going to get his karma for what he'd done wrong. That was one attitude that I sort of adopted with situations like these for a while, where I just had this belief in my head that if someone done something wrong and they didn't get immediate payback for it or whatever, then it was gonna catch up with them eventually. And by fuck did it. He died as a result of the way he chose to live his life. And that is a fucked up way to look at it. But to some extent I do believe in karma in these situations. That was one of the things that helped me just sort of let go, was that I could say, this person, say the banker. The banker is living in ignorance. They don't realise what the fuck they're doing, and one day they're gonna realise for themselves, because everyone's on their own individual sort of path in life, and the banker may not ever give away a portion of their money that could do so much for others, but they've got their own sort of lessons to learn in life, and it's going to happen for them. And I think me saying that is just me assuming that they want to do the right thing, or that when they're confronted with something, that they're going to actually deal with it. And that was the thing that I found really hard to accept with my situation with my dad, because he was confronted with the repercussions of his actions and whatnot, but he chose to be ignorant about it. He chose to just be like, don't give a fuck, can't deal with that, leave me alone. And if he had just faced up to it, then maybe he wouldn't be dead right now. But yeah, so I mean, I don't think there's an easy way to sort of answer Emery's question. Everyone is suffering. Everyone is suffering. One's version of suffering is another's version of doing really fucking well in their life. You know, there's no... I've always had really black and white thinking between, you know, with morals, and I used to always think there was such a thing as a good and bad person. Now I understand that that's bollocks. There is no such thing. Even if think of the most vilified person in the history of humanity, one of which fucking Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler done disgusting things to people, but that's not to say that he was an evil person. That's not to say that every action that he carried out within his lifetime was done with some sort of malice. He wasn't a bad person. He done really, really bad things. But that person that done those things, you know, I'm sure he had loving relationships with people. I'm sure he was kind-hearted at certain times. And the same is the same for all of us. Just don't think that it's possible to have one rule of standards that you impose upon another person or all other people, because everyone's situation is different. And that is the thing that I think allows me to have more compassion for people that I just don't agree with or that have hurt me. Is that I don't know what it's like to be that person. I don't know what their struggles are, but I know that they have them. And yeah, you can't compare situations. Can't do it. You can't. You just have to know that we're all doing the best that we can, even if it looks like they're not. even if it looks like certain people aren't. It just kind of brings up the question of, are all people born good? Are all people born bad? I don't think anyone's born bad. I don't think anyone's inherently evil. I don't think anyone's necessarily born saintly and the world corrupts you as you grow up. But I do think that compassion is within all of us. And so when I see someone doing something that I don't agree with, or is testing my ability to be compassionate towards them, then I just have to remind myself that I'm in no place to judge, and I'm never going to understand what their life is like. I wish that I could package this very neatly. Yeah, I hope we hear from other people and we can try and come up with some sort of resolution together, because it's a very difficult situation. Get in touch with us, and see you later. Bye bye.
The world you see is not the world, it's just the world you see. That's a quote, a phrase that I've been really enjoying lately. It's basically pointing to the fact that we humans are not pure perceivers, that each act of perception is in some sense a creative act, an act of interpretation, wherein we take the information that's coming to us from the outside world and it goes through the filters, the lenses of everything that we've experienced in our past, all of those frameworks by which we make meaning, and then it becomes what we're aware of. So say, for example, that you're looking at an apple in the world. When you're looking at that apple, what you're seeing is a relationship between that sensory experience and all of the thoughts, all of the memories you have about apples, all of the meanings you have about apples. And that relationship creates the way that you experience that apple in that moment. So what's interesting to realize there is that that's a blend, really a blend between what's actually out there and all the interpretive functions that go on inside an individual's mental framework in perceiving that thing in the outside world. And that can exist to different levels. I think for some people, they become stuck within the past interpretations, and some people get very closed in their ways of thinking about the world. So they only see the apple a little bit, and mostly they see all the mental framework they have around the apple. And I think that with sort of this mindset of curiosity, or a more open mindset, you can wonder a little bit more about it. When those thoughts come in, oh, this is an apple, then you can say, well, is it really? What else is that in the outside world? Even the name apple is an overlay on top of that experience, that actual thing that's out there. Even the name apple is extra. It's not inherent in what is the object of perception. And that's interesting because, as I've discussed in previous videos, a lot of damage is done because we're stuck on a single interpretation of the world. We're not willing to observe something from different perspectives, or we're often not willing to concede that we don't hold a monopoly on interpretation of reality. When we come to realize that those interpretations are just interpretations, then it frees us up to not have to really defend them, but to understand another interpretation as a way of broadening our sense of reality, which is ultimately, I think, a positive thing when we can expand our perspective to include new ways of thinking about things. Otherwise, we'd just be stuck. So that piece, the world you see is not the world, it's just the world you see. Question the things that you take for granted about the world. I think this also goes further. This idea of the world we see is not the world, it's just the world we see could be taken in a huge other direction, and I like to think about that direction as well. The fact that none of us really sees, that we're all kind of figuring it out together. We're like, what is this world? Well, I think it's kind of like this. And somebody else says, well, in my experience, it's actually more like this. And then when we all talk together, if we don't come to that conversation with judgment, if we come to that conversation with understanding and curiosity, we get to challenge what we know to be true to the service of finding a larger, more inclusive sense of what the world really is. So with everything, I could probably just keep talking about this. I got a lot more to say, but it's about what you guys have to contribute. I have been so happy to hear all the different thoughts that you guys have shared about the previous videos that I've done and the previous topics that have come up within this group. It's really helped my mind move in some interesting new directions. So what I'd like you to do with this one is to take it into your brains, to let it simmer in there, and to just see what wants to come back out. And it might not even be related to anything that I said specifically, but maybe this idea sets off some other idea inside you, and then maybe you will share that idea, and I'll get to listen to it, and I'll be super pumped listening to some cool other view of the world that may not match mine, but that will help me to find a larger sense. They'll help me to question maybe some of the things that I've thought and come into a more inclusive knowledge of everything that's out there. We really need each other. That's the thing about this. The world you see is not the world. The world I see is not the world. But together, maybe we can get a kind of a cool idea about what it might be, and then listen to somebody else, and then go from there. That's really the cool thing about this whole project in general, is that sense of sharing these opinions, these viewpoints, these passions, these philosophies with each other, so that we can all come to a greater knowledge of ourselves, the world around us, and maybe even a greater sense of what we might be able to bring to the world to make it a better place for everybody who lives here. So I wish you all beauty and light, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Let's go out back and plant a family tree.